Wizards of the Coast officially announce that half-elves, half-orcs, etc., and the very concept of half-races in general is inherently racist. Okay. Very well. Alright. I feel like Wizards of the Coast might be reading a little bit too much in the way of Austrian philosophy, e.g. the painting school recently, but okay. Any sort of race mixing is inherently evil, and only the pure-blooded races should inherit the earth. Oh god. YouTube, please have mercy. I'm just saying what they're saying. And in celebration of Wizards of the Coast discovering their newfound ethical sensibilities, I introduce to you the two most racist people in the entirety of Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast, and Hasbro lore in general. Blackagon and Arven. I did not anticipate this one. See, myself and everybody else did indeed mock Blackagon because, well, it's ridiculous, and it's the most current year thing ever. It literally makes loud them ranks. No longer a meme, but observable reality. But I didn't think that we would then, months later, realize that Wizards of the Coast are looking at this and going, goddamn race mixing scum. I am pushing the limits of YouTube right here. Oh yeah. God damn it. I so I don't. So he didn't elaborate much on this this newfound revelation over at the Wizards of the Coast here, and that's probably for the better. So okay, all right. In all due seriousness, for a second here, let's think about this. So we also haven't been thrilled for years with anything that begins with half. The half construction is inherently racist. Okay, so he's referring here to half-elves, half-orcs, etc. Something that's been in D&D since pretty much its inception, I believe. This is an inherently racist concept. Alright, so D&D has been straight up removing the entire concept of race for a while now. Like just utter yeeters deleters, right? Trying to replace it with species. Anyways, so when they say inherently racist, they could, if I was to just steelman their position here, I would say that the midwit little tards working at Wizards of the Coast might think that the word race, in and of itself, irrespective of any connotations or meanings or whatever, is evil by itself. Like, the very existence of the term race is evil, and therefore anything like a half-race would be evil, and therefore inherently racist. I know, it's a stretch, but the most charitable interpretation possible would be that. What else? I guess I'm sorry. It's just, I suppose the next possibility could, of course, be race mixing is black genocide. Which this there is actually. There is actually a thing around this. You've heard about the Great Replacement theory, right? You know, the thing that's been dubbed a far-right conspiracy theory, etc. Well, that exists on the black side of the political spectrum as well, where they believe that white women boning their men will create whiter babies, and over generations this will eventually create whites, and thus the insidious 1,000-year Nazi plan was finished. It's a minority, mind you, but it does exist. And hey, considering Wizards of the Coast's current ideology, I wouldn't say it's impossible. Far from impossible. And to be fair as well, this does actually, ridiculous though it might sound, have historical precedence. In fact, In Brazil and many Southern American countries, they were of the opinion that black people were, I'm still on YouTube, were less desirable than the white population. And so, one of the ways they quote-unquote fixed this was by making sure that their black daughters would marry white men, creating mulatto babies. It's the official term, YouTube, calm down. And then the mulatto daughters would find more white men, and eventually they would create, well, white people. And there is literally actual precedence for this. There was a whole cultural zeitgeist surrounding it. Argentina as well. There's even conspiracy theories about how Argentina deliberately eradicated a large portion of its male black population to essentially encourage the mixed race inbreeding, which, well, it's a problem when it turns out to be white people, I guess. God damn it. But that would be the woke interpretation of D&D's newfound position on half-races. It's just inherently racist. Here's the thing. Inherently racist. Okay. The meaning of the word racist today, in the modern day context, is something that is against minority groups. That's what it means. It has nothing to do with actual racism anymore, which is the discrimination against people based on their skin color. No, it's about discrimination against certain groups that are considered to be the minorities, regardless of whether or not they actually are the minority, which is why we talk about things like global minorities, for example, where the global majority populations of black and brown people become actually the global minority because of power plus privilege, blah, 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 blah. We're not going to get too deep into intersectional logic here because, frankly, no such thing goddamn exists. But, alright. So clearly, it is racist as in that it hurts the protected groups. And the only way you can square that particular circle is if you go down the idea of black genocide via race mixing, I guess. Well, this is a rather interesting position that Wizards of the Coast have finally arrived at. Go back like 10, 20 years and tell somebody, right, okay. In the future, first and foremost, Dungeons & Dragons is going to be ridiculously popular, and then see their faces just light up like, yay, my hobby will be popular, my god, I get to be one of the cool kids. And then, but you will be considered a racist for playing it. What? What does that have to do with anything? Well, as the, what was it? What was his title? The director guy, creative director or something, I'll see if I can find the thumbnail for it, who said that in his opinion, white people couldn't leave the hobby fast enough because, of course, the further iteration of this is that Wizards of the Coast are themselves just simply extraordinarily racist and view that the mere existence of people with the incorrect skin color in their hobby is objectionable, as we can see by the fact that they are literally telling us that. And again, that is probably the most likely explanation for this ridiculous little screen here. Now, this is a part of a larger, communique on Dungeons & Dragons and its direction in the future. I hate, by the way, that they are launching a virtual tabletop because that is a smart business move, and I would much prefer it if D&D would simply just kill itself already, but, well, you know, Satan rarely just gives up. It also includes some other ridiculous nonsense as well, when creators are constantly taking the hits on behalf of WotC because we're the people can access, it takes a toll and wears on us. Are you putting together mental health and support resources because we need them? Ah yes, it's the YouTubers that support Wizards of the Coast regardless of their repeated ridiculous fuck-ups that are the true victims here. And WotC is going to have to create support infrastructure for them. Likely, very likely. Even the freelancers are asking for this because apparently working at the Wizards of the Coast is so unbelievably toxic that they require their own mental health support infrastructure to be able to work there. But tragically, well, this benefit isn't extended to freelancers and content creators. My god, it must really, really suck to work at or near the Wizards of the Coast, apparently. And hey, having seen their recent position, I can believe it. I can. They also talk about here there have been several missteps in the handling of race in D&D. Handling of Hadusi, that was the monkey people, that was reintroduced, and people were like, black people. Everyone else was like, monkey demons, but no, blacks. Okay. Anyway, if you say so. Long-standing issues about orcs, also generally recognized as black people by progressives. Damn it. The whole orcs are black thing. Peak progressivism. Changes the term race and more. Tarsus addresses it a little bit. What is your game plan for addressing this in the future? So, essentially, they're just going to pass it off to diversity hires and bounce it back and forth between the diversity hires until they've built up enough layers of shielding between themselves and any critique as to protect themselves against the critique. Again, it is performative shit. Oh, this one too. What is Wizards' core values at a high level? With queer, trans, etc. players more visible than possible, which has dangers. What is your core audience? What is your plan for race? Plan for race. Okay, so first, it was like, well, you gotta focus more on us. We need your space. We gotta be seen. We're the queer people, the trans people, blah, blah, blah. We need to be elevated in the community. And then they did that. And now they're like, why did you elevate us? Now we're targets. Help us, protect us. And then you do that. You lower their visibility. Why are you ignoring us? Aye. Anywho, so Wizards of the Coast's plan to fix this is to widen the play space, to make it more welcoming, and to remove any influence of hate, which is why they are removing the words savage, which, considering the recent tragedy, I suppose that makes sense in a certain context. I'm still not sure if we're allowed to talk about that on YouTube. But yeah, no, savage and yeah, no, there's a correlation there. But dim-witted, now that's just cruel. It's like, I have a question about queer and trans people. How are you going to fix their representation? Well, we're removing the word savage and dim-witted. Hey. You cannot make this shit up. You actually can't. There's, of course, a lot more whining about it. How, okay, you're only being inclusive at the end of the process. You ought to be inclusive earlier in the process. And if they're inclusive earlier in the process, then it'll just be tokenism. And then they need to be more inclusive later in the process. And then the vice versa. And again, and on and on for literally all eternity. Because just like we saw with the recent revelation that Anita Sarkeesian is no longer happy with the current state of diversity, equity, and inclusion because it has become too corporate and too wildly incorporated in every company on the face of the earth without her seeing a paycheck. Well, now it's bad, you see. You're doing too much in the wrong ways. You are co-opting our movement. Stop. Because, as we say again and again, it is never good enough. Because it can never be good enough. If it is ever good enough, well, then you admit that your movement has achieved its purpose. You no longer need to exist. It is the same reason why I'm a vehement opponent of the idea of unions, for example. Because unions exist to solve a particular problem. Once that problem is solved, they should simply fade away, but it never does. Because the point is not to solve a problem. It is not to address an issue. It is not to fix something. It is to hoard power, prestige, wealth, and privilege to a very small group of people who use this as a club to beat you over the head with, wizards. It doesn't matter how deep into the ideology you get. It doesn't matter if you embrace the idea of race mixing as black genocide. It doesn't matter if you declare the very concept of race to be inherently racist and evil. None of this matters. You are only being made to look like absolute ridiculous fools. As the only end concept here. The only outcome here. Because you are dancing to the tune of mad priests. Insane worshippers of a deity that believes that original sin rests within you. Wizards of the Coast, D&D, Hasbro. Look around you. You've been trying to appeal to this group of people for a decade plus now. It hasn't worked. It will not work, because again, it simply cannot work. Look at all of the other companies around you. Look at them making cuts. Look at them making cutbacks, firing thousands of people, first and foremost in their diversity, equity, and inclusion departments, to the point where even one of the biggest originators of the idea is looking at it and going, well, this is useless. And just try to smash two neurons together and see where things are going. I have absolutely no faith in your ability to do so, yet nevertheless, never give up hope, I suppose. As they say, 1,000 monkeys with 1,000 typewriters will eventually spell out the words, "Woke is bad for you." Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, race mixing, evil. Have a good day. Oh yeah.